Welcome to the B Shine podcast. First guest we have here is RIQ the Kid. RIQ, you still go by RIQ the Kid or?
Nah, just RIQ now.
RIQ.
RIQ.
We have RIQ. So we met a few years ago.
Right.
Actually, so we're both from New Jersey, but we met through a promoter in London.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Do you remember who that was?
Right. John.
Urban Elite.
Right.
Yeah. That's crazy because he emailed me and he said there's this group out in New Jersey that's near you that you should interview. And I was like, okay, and I never heard of you or 050.
Right.
And it's crazy how we only lived 30 minutes away, but
Right.
it took
and then it went
guy.
from you to then Eclipse, and from Eclipse to then Premiere, and it's funny how life works sometimes, because things connected the dots to each other, and that's dope. That was dope.
Yeah, well, I think I got to Tretch because of you. Also,
right.
He eventually came to Sirius XM where I was filming Eclipse's show, but only because you brought him there.
Right.
So it worked out for both of us.
Right.
As crazy as frustrating as it was to interview 3,000 artists in a span of 7 years. It was a wild ride, but there are a handful of people that I've remained good friends with, and you're one of them. So it's all I always think back of a lot of the positive things that came out of that.
Right.
So yeah, that was super dope.
Right.
But take me back to when you were really just growing up. What was your childhood like before even rapping?
Well, my father left the house when I was about 4 for good. He got into some drugs and different things where he started going down the wrong path, and he left the house about 4. I think the last time I seen him was about 6 years old, but it was probably for less than a half an hour. And when I did see him, he was messed up. And yeah, man, it was that was a thing that actually broke up the family structure that I had or thought I had, and then that was no more. My mom, just being a single mom, raised me and my brothers, and my sister came along, and just growing up in the streets of East Orange and Newark, New Jersey. I started off in Newark, New Jersey. My mom moved out of my grandmom's house, and we moved to East Orange. And when we moved to East Orange, because she was a single mom and my father had left, I still had to go there to Newark, New Jersey. So what I would do is I even started off at school in Newark, and my granddad would pick me up from school. But then later I started going to East Orange School District, we call L-Town in Newark Brick City. So we started going to East Orange School District, but I still had to go to Newark. So it's how both cities ended up raising me, because if my mom wasn't home, then where would I be? So I ended up every day being in Newark, New Jersey on 4th Avenue, and being a father figure became my grandfather, even though mom's was gone. And I did that every day, and I would switch. So in elementary, at first I started off school in Newark, and then in elementary I started going to East Orange School District, and then I went back to Newark School District, and then high school I went to East Orange. So I would flip flop, and I even played Pop Warner for years for Newark, New Jersey. So while a lot of my friends in school, when I went to East Orange School District, played for like the East Orange Rams, I was playing for the North Ward Cardinals and Scorpions in Brownsville Park in Newark, New Jersey, and North Newark. So, yeah, man, that's how both cities ended up raising me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask if you, were involved in sports. So it was like football.
Yeah, well, so I played football in North New Jersey for the Cardinals and the Scorpions growing up, but I played PAL in East Orange at the YMCA. So it ended up being a situation where, like I said, both cities and both environments was able to, raise me, and I learned different things. But the crazy part is the environment was different. It was like in East Orange was my peers, more of the guys that was more of my age. You know what I mean? And when you at a certain age, you want to tear shit up and just cause trouble. And in North Newark, it was more like, I want to say it was more like a community of a neighborhood where a lot of the older guys, the OGs, was around a lot of the times. Even the older people who lived in the homes, and you knew if you was trying to hustle in front of their house, you wasn't going to do that. They was going to tell you to move. So they just had a certain kind of respect level, you know what I mean, in those days. So a lot of the older guys would even try to tell me, like, man, get off the corner, man. Go. The basketball court around the corner. Get off the corner. But as you grow, they start letting you hang out and chill with them, but still kind of giving you game, you know what I mean, and what to stay away from, and what to stick with, you know what I mean. So that's how it was. But then in East Orange was like, let's go cause trouble. So it was like a difference.
So did you stop playing after like high school or something?
So once I got to high school, I broke this leg. I had got hit in this leg, broke, and then I was done with that.
Yeah, I bet.
Everything else was just for fun after that.
As far as school goes, how far did you go to school? Did you go to college?
No. I didn't go to college.
You graduate high school?
Yeah.
Okay. And then after that, it was working.
Right.
Working in music.
Right.
You were doing music by the time you had graduated. But
right. I started before I graduated, actually.
Like taking it serious.
No, I didn't know how serious that I wanted to take it. But I started to recognize that I was really good at it. And, from there, I started to take it serious. And one of the reasons I'm going to say, because it was a couple guys that was in my neighborhood, and they took it serious. And they were best friends of mine. And I guess from the inspiration of them, that made me want to take it serious too. Plus, like I was saying before, seeing the artists from our area be successful, because it was one moment in time with Jersey had all the artists that was going crazy at the time. So the Redmans, the Queen Latifahs, OCM, Lords of the Underground, Poor Righteous Teachers,
Artifacts.
Yo, it was the Jersey circle of artists was going crazy at the time. So when you seen that, you was like, man, I could do that. And when the guys, when Naughty by Nature, they actually became those guys from the city being so close to where I was from and being able to see it close up, it gave you more inspiration. Like that, we really can do this. And then when they taking you around the video shoots or tours and things like that, and you a part of it, you like, man, this a great feeling. You know what I mean? So it just made you feel inspired and motivated. You know what I'm saying?
But when you say you started getting good, like, you know that from like the feedback you were getting from people. Right.
This is when I knew that I was pretty good at it. When I was in I think the 6th grade, and me and one of my best friends that I spoke on, we became a group later on, and we did a talent show. But I always was kind of shy with doing music, even though I knew I can do it, right? I kind of was shy at it, and once it was needed before. Okay, so this is how it happened. The talent show was gonna happen, and there was a part that nobody knew, and they like, "RIQ, you know it," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but I don't want to do that." And it made me, come on, just do it, and it made me ended up trying out. And when I did it, it turned out good. And when I got on the stage, I was scared out of my mind, but I still did it anyway. And when I seen the response from it, it made me comfortable. You know what I mean? And then I was like, damn, I can do this. And that's when I knew that it wasn't going to be as hard as I thought.
That's cool. You know this by now. I started, I was making music back then. Not
right.
Back in like the very late 90s, early 2000s to like 2010.
Right.
One of the like earliest things I did was in high school was really, I first started like recording myself.
Right.
And I was doing it on like cassette tapes. Like I had the boombox, press record, play the instrumental from other speakers, and then just rap, and you had to do it in the same take.
Right. I'm familiar.
So you had to just get it right in the first or one take. But I remember doing a high school, like, I don't know, some sort of like talent competition.
Right.
And I came out to rap, and I used the instrumental "Bow Down" by West Side Connection.
I'm familiar.
But the problem with it is that the beat just drops immediately, and then you like there's no intro to it. It's
right, you just gotta come right in.
The world is mine.
Right.
And so I had wrote like to start right when it dropped.
Right.
But I didn't anticipate that, like, you don't know when it's gonna come when they're playing it from like the auditorium.
Right.
So it dropped. Obviously, I wasn't ready.
Right.
And then I was like, I tried to start late, and then I like forgot, and then I was like freestyling, and then it stopped, and then it was terrible. But people still came up to me because, like, in my high school, like, nobody really listens to rap like that. They just heard me like my voice going fast, and they're like, "That was really good." So always have those like awkward moments as you're learning.
Nah, you actually spitting some shit though.
Oh, now
I heard you a few times.
Yeah. So I mean,
when I heard you, I was surprised.
I was recording in college. Was when I started getting like my sophomore, junior. Yeah, towards the end of college, like my senior year of college, that was when I was like, all right, I'm like pretty good now.
Right.
But I knew up until that point that I wasn't that good. I just knew that I liked doing it and it was cool. But then I started getting the praise my senior year, and I was like, oh, wow, like I really like stepped it up now.
Right.
So then it was just ongoing from there to now. It's like, of course, I appreciate the feedback, but that takes like 15 years of practice right, to do it.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. So I get it, and I feel like we're all like of the same age, we are almost purists, right? That's why we don't like some of the new stuff, because it doesn't sound like it takes a whole lot.
Right.
Like to just like anyone can be a rapper, but not everyone can be a good one.
Right.
And it's not about popularity.
Right.
So.
Also, a lot of it doesn't give, and it depends on the artist, but I remember a lot of it used to paint a picture of where those people were from and draw out an emotion. And if they was from the West Coast, but you never been there, but you put on Bow Down, you understood what it was to be like in the West Coast. Mm. Now that kind of identity, you don't really hear it no more.
No, it had the very you mean like the unique sound,
right?
Like with the like with the heavy synthesizers and stuff like that,
right?
And then over in the East Coast, it was just very gritty,
right? Mm-hmm. But everybody has their own thing. You know what I mean? So there might be the synthesizers, but over here might be that grit that sounds just real dirty, like for Dirty Jersey. You know what I mean? But now those things, it's not that identity of, oh, you from here and you from there and you from here and you from there, and we never been there, but when we listen to it and we listen to this artist from there, we back in St. Louis or we back in Florida, or we, you know what I mean? And it just doesn't have that no more. Yeah.
It's like a melting pot now.
Right.
And it's just, but the music is just so different now anyways. Like, not even auto-tune, but just like the way the rhyming is like, it's not.
Right.
It's not the same thing. It's like it's coming
different. Back though.
It's just always different. There's just always different like pockets. Right. It's always been there. That's what, the whole like underground.
Right.
Is because it's like it never left. Like hip hop.
Well, let's say it's coming back to the mainstream.
The mainstream, right? Because it's just not represented. So you have some of that with like Action Bronson,
right?
And some upcoming artists I really like Token.
Okay,
if you know him, and even some younger guys that are not so new, like Chris Rivers, who's Pun's son,
right?
Denzel Porter,
right?
Those guys can really, really rap.
But a lot of the new artists, right? Because I had recently looked at it and it was showing that the most music being streamed is the older music.
Is it? Like who?
Yeah, I mean, the hip hop culture and generation of music that we're talking about and we're speaking of, that's the music that's being streamed the most. So for hip hop. So
like DMX, Big Pun, like that kind of stuff.
Right. So when you look at it, it's a lot of it has been some change of events that has happened that has actually made a lot of the new upcoming artists say, "Damn, well maybe I need to go back and check out some history on where it came from."
You can tell, though, the ones that do.
Right. I would say one of those events was Jadakiss. He played a part in one of those events. Because what the Lox did and Dipset did in that Versus, that really was something that really brought back the essence that even the newer artists and the newer generation say, I got to go back and see where this actually came from, what happened. Because you got the actual essence of, where hip-hop really came from and what it meant to people. So people, and then you had all these different artists dropping albums, like awesome albums. Like Nas just dropped like 3.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. King Disease 2, and Magic. So you just had all these artists dropping these even like, let me just say, you got the guy I really rock with him, RJ Payne, newer artist, right?
Payne.
Right, but he, you hear the essence of it. You hear the essence of, so when you get these newer artists that's checking out what's going on, they starting to say, hey, I need to go back and see what actually happened, where, you know what I mean, where the history comes from. So I think it's changing to move on to the mainstream a lot.
What'd you think of the Locks Dipset versus?
Oh, that shit was crazy, man. It was crazy. The energy, one of the things that I was really impressed with, I'm looking, because I'm an artist and a performer, so I'm watching the Locks and how they're in sync with each other, because I come from a 3-man group too. Yeah. So I'm looking at how they're in sync with each other and how they're giving each other space, right? Because I know to do those things. But then I'm looking at the breath control and, like Kiss kept saying, they rapping over their songs, but the memory of the effort that they took to actually take their time and make sure they know their records front to back. And when Kiss don't say this word, Styles saying that word, and Chic over there saying this word, and them being able to actually hold it down for each other as teammates in a group, I was watching that and just getting that energy, man. So that was dope for me to watch that.
Yeah, because they are more so a group than they are independent artists. I would say, like, in those early few albums,
right?
So they have so many years of just being in sync together, and they could probably predict each other's moves,
right?
Whereas I feel like Dipset,
right,
they come together occasionally, but it was more of like, I feel like it was more of like they were independent artists that sometimes did albums together.
Right.
I could be speculating on that, but
that's
how it came off.
I got it. I definitely get it. Because you may be definitely right about that.
But overall we were just spoiled in the 90s with that. Like, well, late 90s, early 2000s with like having Locks, having Dipset, having DMX.
And everybody had their own sound. Even if they got something from here and got something from there and got something from Big L and got something from, everybody still knew that you had to come with your own sound. That was important, not to be a biter at all. That was important, because you used to get dissed for that. I mean, these are generations before me, but I know the history of it because I knew to learn that if I was going to be involved in getting in that. So I know that to not have your own, come with your own style and your own sound, that was a no-no. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean,
even for the radio and the labels, they were looking for something that was new, that sounded different, and then it changed too. Let me find who sounds like this.
Exactly.
Insert here.
It's I don't know the terminology for it, but it's like the opposite of what we used to. Something that was completely off limits is now accepted as like the norm, right? So like we're talking about like biting or sound being original. If you weren't original, you would be like, ostracized or like, made fun of for it. But now it's like you do what's popular, so you are sounding the same. So it's like
and that's actually not what I'm saying. What I saw is that, or I observed, it's actually not everyone's fault that happened, because they felt a lot. You do have a lot of artists that they doing it for a hustle, right? But you do have a lot of artists where it's a passion of theirs, right? So you got these artists that they have a passion for rap and hip hop, and they want to make a living with it. You know what I mean? And when you want to make a living with it, and the radio is saying, well, you need to sound like this, and you got to get me a record that's like this. It's like, what you gonna do?
Well, you had so few artists that are iconic, like a Jay-Z or a Nas or a DMX. Right. It's extremely difficult to find another one of those. Right. So you're right. You know, so what the record labels did was they made it, they made hits out of, these pop hits that they would have these one-hit wonder artists, right, and then just repeat that cycle because they weren't finding, these long-term artists that were just like incredibly good and thorough, in it. So that kind of is like, and
but they stopped looking for that though. In a way where no artist development, right? You know what I'm. Right. So how are you gonna think you're gonna find these kind of artists when you're not giving the right attention to it? You know what I mean? It's like, if it's microwave, of course you're not, because those guys came from the grind of things. That wasn't microwavable artists that came. That's why their music's still here today. Yeah, because they came from the grind and the trenches of things. So
yeah, but what I'm saying is that's what led to everybody wanting to sound the same, was because they just tried to get, hit after hit, however it sounded, whatever was going to make them money, and then on to the next one. So now you have generations of kids that just want to like make these hits or make a song that's going to make them money. So I mean, it's a business, so you can't really look at it from like a hip hop lens. Right. So that's the whole thing. It's like an ongoing debate. But where I'm at now is like I don't even talk about what I don't like anymore. Like, oh, that's not this and that's not that. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, I just pay attention to what I like.
What you like.
And if I don't like it, I'm just like, okay, I'll move on. It's just like, it's so much better
that's another
for your mentality.
Though. It used to be a lot more options to pick from. So it's cool when you got the music that sound like this, or you got the drill, or you got the mumble rap, or you got but let it also be this content, and that content, and this content too. Mainstream though, like it was before. You always had artists that used to do things that this area may have not liked. You always had that, but you always had the alternatives of different things. But it wasn't just underground. Mm-hmm. It was anybody can get it. Anybody can listen. You know what I mean? And now it's not like, so that made people say, damn, well, to get here, I got to do this.
It's different. It's a whole different thing now. No magazines, nothing like that.
Right.
But as far as you kind of making your rounds, doing shows, showcases, things like that, who is have you like they say brushed elbows with some like popular artists? Like, who are some of the bigger names that you've like met in person?
Oh man. So one thing, that I did a few tour shows with Naughty by Nature. So then I've done a tour show with Lords of the Underground.
There you go.
The dope part was watching them, and they're both 3-man groups, but seeing the difference and how they perform. So that was definitely dope for me and gave me something to think about also. But I also did the Art of War, which DMX, and Raekwon and Ghostface, Ice-T.
What venue was that?
This was NJ Pack.
Okay.
For the Art of War tour.
Yeah.
Havoc.
Nice.
Damn, it's a lot of artists.
Did you perform at any of these?
Yeah.
Okay, so Naughty by Nature brought you
Right.
out, and Lloyd's brought you out.
So there used to be a Garden State Greats affiliation that they would do a Garden State Greats segment.
Okay.
And that was some of the upcoming artists that was chosen. And then we'll go on to the Naughty by Nature. With the Lords of the Underground, we have done 050 performance, and then they have done their thing after that, or Do It All has come and done
Nice.
this thing after that. And then in the Art of War, like I just named, we were on a venue for that as well, with DMX and Mobb Deep and Raekwon, Ghostface, Ice-T. So yeah,
That's cool. I've been to a couple like backstage at like big venues, like the Coney Island Boardwalk.
performed with Beanie Siegel.
That's dope.
I know I'm forgetting a lot of names.
I always think of like being backstage at these venues, even Barclays Center. It's like if you have an artist, like a big artist, like who should I say is there, like Ice-T,
Right.
you'll have the hallway in the backstage like packed, and it's a lot of people that like may know Ice-T from like back in the day,
Right.
or like stuff like that. So like when you're backstage it's like you're at like a shoulder to shoulder like packed bar or something like that.
Right.
Because
right.
you're just in a hallway,
Right.
and people have their dressing rooms, and
Right,
everybody's like trying to like reach out to the artist, like yo, remember me
Right.
from this? And I was like, this is crazy. This is really crazy.
Right.
And
Right.
so I can only imagine what it's like being like an artist like that, where you're just like everybody's just like almost like everybody wants something from you or wants your attention,
Right.
and it's just like
Right.
you can't. So then they come off as like people like, oh, screw him, he's rude,
Arrogant. Or,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, think he's bigger than.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that artists that get big are like that, but I can see why people might think that when they're just like,
Right.
they're only thinking about
Or they
their
may,
needs.
or while artists may feel like they need to, get some space at sometimes because it's just sometimes it's like it's overwhelming.
Yeah. Nah, but it's super cool, and I'm glad I went through that as far as going through all of these all of these interviews and backstage and meeting artists, and it's like I'm not really starstruck anymore, which I think is good, because you can like humanize with somebody and
Right.
and like respect their space and
Right.
their time, and you also don't put people on a pedestal, which I think is like really important, because that's
Right.
that's like horrible for our society, that we have people that are like,
Right. Because a
these
lot of
people are
times you
better
don't
than
even
us.
let them be human
Yeah,
and recognize that they make mistakes too, or they live regular lives too, or want to at least, and don't allow them to do it, or they get criticized because they ate
yeah,
with a regular fork.
yeah. So I have a quick story about DJ Premier.
Right. Oh, that's another.
Yeah. He's like the coolest guy. He's so funny,
Right.
and just like easygoing. But I met him.
Yeah, that's another person I brush shoulders with.
Yeah. Super cool, legend. So I was filming for DJ Eclipse's show at what was it called? Rappers Out of Control on Sirius XM every week.
Right.
And so sometimes Premier would just show up as just to say hi because he had his own XM show.
Right.
Or sometimes he would fill in as the DJ. So like I would actually like see him like every so often. Like I probably met him, I don't know, maybe 10 times. And I would always be like, holy shit, that's DJ Premier. Like,
right.
And I wanted to have some level of rapport with him because I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
And so I would always try to like, you know, bring up something to him, maybe a song that I liked or whatever, but you still on this like fan level to him.
Right.
When you do that, he's just like, okay, cool. Yeah. But then there was this one time where I was on that whole, you were talking about before, if I'm vegan or something. I did that for a 7-month period where I was vegan. And then I had gone to Thailand and then it was over. I was eating meat and I was eating everything out there. So like I haven't done it since that was like
then, since
20
Thailand.
That was 2017. So I haven't done it since then. 2018 and on, I've been eating meat. But I had lost like 30 pounds. And I was still doing Eclipse's show, and Premier like came up. He like saw me and he said something to Eclipse, like, is that the same guy? Because I look different. And Eclipse said, yeah, that's him. And then Premier came up to me and was like, yo, man, like, what did you did you do? How'd you lose weight? And I told him what I was doing, and he was like, yeah, I'm trying to lose a little bit too. And like, we were just having like a conversation about it.
Something that had nothing to do with music.
I was like, that's how I found the connection with Premier.
Right.
By talking about like exercise and weight loss.
Right.
And that was crazy. So it's like, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it was just reminding me of like, just humanizing with people.
Right. Exactly.
And you never know where that connection is going to come from. So people are always like, want to talk about, oh, I love this song. You're always going to be in the fan zone, like the friend zone,
right?
Like the fan zone, unless you like ask them like a good, like a question about like what, I don't know. I don't have a good example, but something that they can really connect with.
No, I got you.
So yeah,
that just brings out the human side, opposed to the fan side.
So if you had to give a speech in front of an audience for like 45 minutes without any preparation, what's something you could talk about?
45 minutes without any preparation.
Yeah, what's something that you're like so like skilled at in something, I don't know, in life, a skill or a knowledge base?
I would definitely say music is one of them. Being a dad, it's another one. Being able to surpass obstacles and stay focused through adversity.
Do you have an example, something like an obstacle that you've surpassed?
Yeah. From the beginning, like just what I told you, me being a dad now, I recognize how much stuff I missed. Because I'm giving what I actually should have got and still being able to be a good dad now without even having those elements given to me. You know what I mean? And you growing up in the streets in the ghetto in your area without having that element of a father to give you guidance, you know what I mean? And being able to still surpass those different things without that element, that's already like beating the obstacle in itself, you know what I mean? And then you turn around and you become a good father yourself, because a lot of times the cycle repeats itself. But I broke the cycle, you know what I mean? So
So how did you do that? Just by acknowledging what you didn't have and thinking like, I want my kids to.
Right. So it's like the things that, I mean, you definitely learn as you go, but the things that I didn't get, I found myself giving. You know what I mean? Whether it was discipline, whether it was encouragement, whether it was love, just found myself giving those things. And certain things that I might have lacked on, or because I didn't have the person there to tell me, nah, don't go down that, I was able to say, nah, you don't go down that road. You know what I mean? I did it before, you know, and I did it before because I didn't have that person to say, yeah, don't go that route, you know? So just being able to do that and say, hey, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, let me get this to you. You know what I mean?
That's dope, man. So where are you at now, just balancing everything? You have music, you have work.
Balancing everything is the hard part. You got your personal, and then you have your children, where you have to give them attention.
Of course.
Because they come first.
Well, they also demand it, depending on what age.
But not only that, like with the conversation we just had, when you didn't have it, you want to give it already. So
right.
So you got that part, and then you got to have time for your own self,
right?
Because you can't give anything to anybody else if you feel like shit, or you don't have no time for yourself to get a breather. So you got to have some time for your own self. And then, as you know, I have Ill City Entertainment. So I got 7 artists. So that's 7 different personalities that you got to deal with, and needs, and attention, and you know what's gonna sound good for you, what's gonna sound good for you, what's good marketing for you, and like I was telling you, we've become a family, so it's a lot of personal things that get involved too. Like maybe it's you got a flat tire and you all the way, you know what I mean, in West Bubblefuck somewhere, and we got to get there to get you, you know, because we help each other out that way. So you got an extended family that you're trying to make sure you give the attention to your artists, and then you got your children, and then you got yourself you got to give, you know what I mean? That can become difficult because you got to be able to balance those things mentally first, and then emotionally. But I don't know. I don't know how I'm able to do it. That's always kind of been a gift of mine, to be able to have a balance with things and do. They say Geminis are like that.
What, that they can balance?
Yeah, like a jack of all trades type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot easier when you're a teenager or in your 20s to like.
Yeah, because you got more energy.
Yeah, exactly. But
you got and less responsibilities.
Yeah, so I was in a group. We released like 2 albums from like 2010 to 2012, and then we started working more seriously. The guy I was rhyming with was he like went to the Air Force, and then I was sometimes recording, but then I just kind of like, I don't know, the drive just never stayed. And I just was working and thinking what to do. And then I picked up a video camera, but it just, the motivation to like write, like I would try to sit down and try to write a verse. And after like 30 minutes, I would just like want to do something else. And I was like, damn, like it's just not there. So, I mean, I admire anybody that can continuously like write, continuously keep that motivation.
Right.
I had it with the B-Shine when I was actively like traveling to do interviews, because I did that for 7 years, and I always told myself I'm always going to be doing this until it's not fun anymore.
Right.
And that's what happened. So, but good 7 years of like being super active, just all my free time going out to doing it. So like, I get it, but to stay super consistent for a long period of time is like, it's pretty remarkable.
Right. So, but you did it for a lot of years. You took your break. You back at it
in a different way, right? I'm not.
So tell me what you mean when you say you back at it in a different. Oh, because you're not gonna be.
So.
Interviewing as much.
Well, yeah. So the difference is. So I guess I have to explain kind of like what happened was. Okay. I had like a specific vision of who I wanted to interview and what type of, like, I guess you could say like what era, certain old school artists.
Right.
And I was doing these ciphers.
Right.
And I wanted to, one of the big things I was doing was, well, in my mind, the big thing I was doing was not interviewing, the ciphers. Right. I was filming these ciphers and I was setting them up to have like different groups, different like, you can call them old school groups or even 90s groups together. Like I was planning on doing a, this is like real independent New York hip hop, but Natural Elements and the Juggernauts.
Right.
I was in talks with like both of those groups to do like a collaboration cipher with both groups, where both groups come together and do a cipher. And I was also talking to a lot of like old school artists. Like one of my best moments ever was when I filmed a cipher with cool DJ Red Alert spinning.
Right.
And he was spinning for Tila Rock and Silver Fox from Fantasy 3. So it's like Red Alert and these two like artists that were popular in the 80s. Was just like incredible to get them back. I mean, because Tila Rock was huge. He went overseas in the 80s. It was like he was very big. But I had Tila Rock, Silver Fox. There were two others that were supposed to be there that weren't. Then I did one up in the Bronx with DJ Rob Swift from the Executioners, and he spun for Little Rodney C from the Funky 4+1. And who was the other guy? Reggie Reg from the Crash Crew.
Okay.
So like I wanted to get more members from the Funky Four. Like I'm blanking out on the female from the Funky 4+1. Sharrock, MC Sharrock. Okay. And others, and then other members of the Crash Crew, and have like these almost like a verses. Now it would be like like a cipher with these two old groups.
Got you.
Right. Imagine
we did that kind of sorta, because I remember we did a cipher, and you had a whole nother group of guys that was there also.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was more sporadic.
It was a little different though.
They were more individual artists. There were like three other individual artists, and then your group. It wasn't like two groups.
Okay, got you.
So what was happening was I had these visions that I was going to do these like incredible ciphers of these artists from like the 80s that you hadn't like seen in a long time, and they would be doing their cipher, and everybody was like backing out of these ciphers. I did 30 of them. I did more than 30 of them, and almost every single time people were backing out of these ciphers, and then I would be left with like maybe 2 or 3 people. Right. And I said, well, I can't just film a cipher with just like a few. I mean, I could, but I wanted it to be a more like well-rounded group. So then I would end up hitting people up like with 1 or 2 days notice to come through. And granted, luckily, a lot of people did come through, and it just turned into like a regular cipher. Nothing to take away from any of the artists.
So
it just wasn't my vision.
You used to do it a little bit more with days prep, but then you started to do it a little bit short notice.
It used to be like weeks prep.
Right.
Weeks, maybe longer.
And then people would say they would do it, and then as you got closer, then back out of it.
Yeah, so it just ended up being like a whole bunch of ciphers that ended up what they ended up as, which some of them were great, and some of them I was really surprised at, the artists, but it just wasn't my vision.
Right.
And so I just didn't want to just be doing random ciphers with random artists. I wanted it to be very strategic with very specific groups.
Right.
And it just, I don't know, people didn't take it serious, or they wanted to be paid, or things like that. Like, I get it, but it was just like people would agree to do it
and then wouldn't do it,
and then back out, or just not show up, or like things like that. So then I was like, well, additionally, with just doing interviews, it got to be more frustrating, because there was a time where I had scheduled an interview with Ice-T through his manager.
Right.
And this is when they did I don't know if it wasn't called Old School Hip Hop, but it was some big show where it was like Ice-T, there was like Sugar Hill Gang, Naughty by Nature was on it. It was something at the Coney Island Boardwalk. Mm-hmm. And so Ice-T's manager confirmed it. He's like, yeah, we're good. Like, here, I'll get you on the list to go backstage, and then, we can do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, great. So I show up a little bit early.
His manager, Mick?
I don't remember his name.
Okay.
I don't remember his name, but
Uncle Mick.
So I end up waiting. People are showing up. Ice-T finally shows up. It's him. He's with Coco, and he's with his kid. I don't know. It was I think it was just one baby at the time.
Right.
So the three of them show up, and obviously I'm not going to rush Ice-T while he's with his family.
Right.
So he gets in his, but also once he shows up, I told you about these packed hallways backstage.
Right.
Like,
with a whole bunch of people like, ice.
Yeah, so you really have to like fight to get through to somebody, and then once you're there with a whole group of people around you, you have to like...
Right.
And that's not normally like my style.
Right.
So
no, it ain't.
It's not my style. So anyway, he gets into his dressing room, whatever. Then I go up to the manager. I was like, hey, ma'am, what do you think about like, setting up the interview? Like, what time do you think is good? When do you think we could set something up? Because I don't know what their schedule is like as far as when he's going on and this and that. And what I think happened was he assumed that just getting me backstage, getting me on the list was good enough for me to like do my thing.
Right. And
I'm not going to like, I'm not like aggressive enough to just stronghold people, like, for lack of better words, stronghold somebody like, yo, Ice, let's do this interview.
Right.
Because he might not even know. He might not even know I'm there for that or anything. So I asked the manager, like, hey, what do you think? And he was like, something like, man, what do you, I don't even remember now. He's like something like, man, what are you talking about? Man, what do you need me for? Or something like that, where he just like brushed it off like it was on me.
Right.
I was like, well, that's not really how this works, but okay. So he said like whatever he said in like a rude manner and just walked off. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I had been there for like 7 hours. And it was just so crazy. It was mob. The show started. It was like whatever. So I just ended up leaving. Mm-hmm. So like it was like a Saturday. I was there for 7 hours, left, didn't get the interview. Mm-hmm. And like, that's just one example of just the amount of like time that I spend like trying to get like maybe an interview when you still didn't even get the interview. Yeah. So that, and then these ciphers, people were just falling out. And then I was also in my head about like, you know, Combat Jack was really popular at the time. Rest in peace to him. You had other, you know, I mentioned him because he was an attorney in the music industry. And so he had all these relationships with these big artists that I was trying so hard to like build up a rep to, you know, be able to interview. And I was like, this guy's over here, like just getting everybody he wants, and they have rapport and history. So it's super easy for them to talk. And I'm like, oh, what influenced you? So there's like not a lot of stories come out in my interviews compared to them. It's just all like history and stuff like that. So I was just like, I'm spending all this time, all my money, all my vacation time to like go out and travel and try to get these interviews. And I did get a lot of really, really good interviews.
But it was a lot of negative things that happened on the way.
Yeah, and I literally made no money from doing all these interviews. And I eventually got to a point where I was like, well, what am I doing this for? I got a lot of interviews. I got like hip hop heads loved the Bishan. Like they love the interviews and like, you know, the level of, like respect and credibility was there. I built that up and that was great. And then I met great people and stuff like that. But as far as just like, what am I doing with my time? What's the direction of, I guess, my life? What do I want to be spending my time doing?
Right.
It was like I was at a crossroads between like, I'm trying to preserve the culture and, you know, the history of hip hop and this and that versus like, what should I be doing for myself? And it was like, hit that crossroads. So I went to, I think I started losing the motivation to like put that effort in after a certain period of time. And so it was like the summer of 2017. I remember feeling like less excited to do certain interviews that were like coming my way. So then I told Eclipse that I'll finish out. Well, I told him in October that I was going to finish out the year, and then I was going to be done with filming the show. And I hadn't filmed any interviews since.
How did he feel about that when he said that?
He understood.
He understood?
Yeah. He was, I think he was a little bit, I don't know if it was shocked, but we had a good relationship. He and I were it was like very fluid where I would come in, set up, interview, and then put out the clips, and he may have like a comment here and there once in a while, but otherwise like everything ran very smoothly. So he was like, oh, now he got to find another like video person for the show. So I think he was like, that was it. But otherwise
Eclipse is super cool, man.
Yeah.
Super dope guy.
Super. And he's got like the highest level of respect in the community. Yeah. Everybody loves him. I mean, he's one of the only few DJs that still like represent like independent hip hop. Yeah. There's no real outlets for it as big as what he's doing on Sirius XM.
This is true.
So yeah, he and I will text once in a while. We'll make jokes or something like that. Like he's still cool. So I told him, and then I finished out the year, and then I went to Thailand for the first time because I think I was talking to somebody that I was working with, like at my job, and she was like, "Why don't you like save up your vacation time and just take a big trip at the end of the year?" Right. So I was like, you know what? I deserve that. Right. Because 7 years of just traveling everywhere, Atlanta, Boston.
For everybody else, you just need some time to do something like that for yourself.
LA, Oakland, Miami, Detroit. I went to Detroit 3 different times with the expectation of filming a documentary about the Detroit hip hop scene. So I was like really, really deep in it. And I didn't even realize like what I was getting myself into because I didn't have the resources to really do a documentary. And I wasn't even very skilled videographer either. I was
Right.
just somebody that had drive with a camera.
Right.
So
Right.
then I went to Thailand. I was like for 2 weeks, and I was like, I need to just take a vacation that's like just for me.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
that place like blew my mind. And then I just kept traveling. And
Nah, you need it. You need it sometimes.
yeah. And so okay, coming back to what you're saying as far as I'm back, it's not doing those short, like, what inspires you? What's one of your
Right.
favorite memories? That kind of stuff. I was using most of the same questions with the same people, but I was also doing interviews in volume and not as much quality.
Right.
So if I went to LA for like 5 days, and I did like 60 interviews in 5 days, which is a lot, and it's meeting a lot of people, and I made a lot of connections that helped me get to other artists.
Yeah.
But it was the volume, and so now it's like, all right, I'm not going to be running around. I'm not going to be like doing so much travel. I mean, I can drive somewhere, but you're right. I'm not trying to kill myself. Like just every chance I can get, like whatever.
Right.
And it's more about like the quality.
Right.
So that's why we're having like these conversations.
Right.
And we did it.
So you right now you're more quality over quantity.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity. Also, I don't know if I want to do strictly podcast stuff with hip hop.
Right.
Like I have a lot of ideas where I want to like talk to other people in like different industries and things like that. So that's
I
kind
think
of
that's dope.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I actually thought about making like a video because I never really announced anything.
Right.
And say like, this is what happened, this is where I'm back, but I think we just did that. I think I did it already.
No doubt.
So, so you could technically say I'm back. I mean, I have literally like hundreds, maybe 500 interviews that have never been released. So the YouTube channel is still going to show new content.
Right.
I have a Prodigy interview that never released.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And you know what? I asked him, one of the questions that I used to ask people were, what do you want people to remember you for? And he answered that question. And
I don't. Okay.
No. I can't remember specifically what he said.
Okay.
But that's like a clip. And it's crazy to think because I probably interviewed, I don't know, now it might be like a dozen people that passed away. And that is
that
crazy.
You have.
Yeah, I have interviews with. And
yeah, that's crazy.
I remember when it was like 1, it was 2, it was 3. And I was like, this is like a little bit scary now. But these interviews are time capsules. But again, with the traveling, with I was filming, I was scheduling.
That's important in itself.
What?
The fact that you have these pieces left of these people that people haven't even been able to see. Imagine when Havoc sees that. How are we gonna feel when he see that? And it's not anywhere circulating around.
Right. Nobody has.
No one has it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not holding on to it for any reason.
Right.
The thing is that why I have so many interviews not released is that I was doing all of the scheduling, the filming, the traveling, the interviewing, the editing, the social media, the write-ups on the blog.
Right.
So now it's I just have the videos, and I'm not worrying about like making a write-up on the website.
Right.
It's really just getting the interview edited and just putting it on
to
YouTube.
The people. Gotcha.
And so that way it will allow me to steadily like release. So the channel is going to continue to put out the content, and we'll see what I end up doing as far as like doing more videos or podcasts and things like that.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. It's crazy. There was something else.
Well, I can't wait to see some of the interviews that you got of people that may not even be here anymore. And be able to check out some history that you made, because that's what it is. It's history. So I think it'll be dope for the people.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that.